In 2016, we, by which I mean NASA, launched Osiris-Rex to collect samples from the asteroid Bennu. We were looking for the building blocks of life, and we've previously covered all the careful steps that NASA had to take to avoid contaminating that pristine asteroid sample with our Earth-based building blocks of life. In our follow-up story, a few weeks later, after Osiris-Rex had returned to Earth and we were starting to do preliminary analysis, we talked about how that sample container was the worst case of I can't get this jar open in the history of science, requiring some intense engineering solutions from NASA to extract the sample material without, again, contaminating it with our Earth life stuff. But they eventually got the asteroid jar open. And preliminary analysis had told us that the trip to Bennu was totally worth it. It had all sorts of interesting complex chemistry, including polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. I know that doesn't necessarily sound like the stuff thrillers are made of, but my organic chemistry nerds, I know they're here for it. For context, like what things we've previously found on asteroids, another asteroid we sampled, Ryugu, had the nucleobase uracil present on it. This is its molecular makeup. You might remember it from biology class as the nucleobase that RNA has, that DNA doesn't. So now that scientists have completed a more robust analysis of the Bennu sample, published in Nature and Nature Astronomy, when I tell you that it had all 5 nucleobases on it, we can fully appreciate what an upgrade, huge discovery that is compared to that previous finding. Here they are, in all their glory. I'm not showing you the molecular structure because it'll be on some quiz or something, but looking at these, we get a degree of complexity that we sense from these molecules. But oh my gosh, y'all, it gets so much cooler than that. We found amino acids. We found 14 of the 20 amino acids we use on Earth to make proteins. If you're curious about which ones, they're these, incidentally, the ones with the boxes, which, just as it happens, covers all my favorites. I'm a big fan of the polar amino acids. I love a tyrosine, you know? Now, abiotic amino acid production is totally a thing. This, for instance, is the Miller-Urey experiment. You got methane, ammonia, and hydrogen in a 2-to-1 ratio here with some water. On top of that, you add some heat and a little electrical spark. The diagram here shows that as the water vapor condenses, down there in the trap you find organic compounds, but this diagram is being modest. This experiment can produce amino acids. I love this experiment because when I look at the molecules in those amino acids we'd seen earlier, I understand how you could get there from here. This experiment reminds me that, yeah, it isn't totally wild that we would find amino acids on a space rock, especially one with incredibly strong evidence of water and with tons of ammonia and nitrogen-rich organic matter. None of which is to suggest that the amino acids on Bennu are any less exciting for that. Like, I find it cooler because it is so plausible that we should have found them there. There's also something kind of interesting about the amino acids we found on Bennu. With one exception, high glycine, amino acids are chiral molecules, meaning there's a left-sided and a right-sided version, just like your hands. On Earth, the only amino acids that life codes for in DNA are left-sided amino acids. All species from all kingdoms of life on Earth play from that same rule book, and one of the big outstanding questions in astrobiology is how that left-sided advantage got going and snowballed into the universal standard on Earth. One of the hypotheses was that factors in the early solar system itself predisposed to these left-sided amino acids, and life on Earth reflects that pre-life early solar system predilection. And yet, the amino acids on Bennu suggest that wasn't the case. The amino acids we found were a mixture of left-handed and right-handed amino acids. So, if the early seeds of life were carried to Earth by asteroids, which for the record, is an active hypothesis, not a known truth, what arrived on Earth may well not have had a left-sided bias at the time of impact. And all of this is as cool as it is because of all the care NASA took in getting this sample. I might tease some of Earth's mightiest engineers for getting the lid to the jar stuck, but the truth is, their conscientiousness is what makes this finding as impactful as it is. In 1969, the Murchison meteorite fell in Australia. The oldest material found on Earth is the Murchison meteorite because it's on Earth now. It counts, it's ours. Scientists had also found amino acids in samples of that meteorite, which was incredibly exciting, but they could never know 100% for sure that any given part of those results weren't the result of contamination with Earth stuff because, well, it was on Earth. But now that we've found even more of these things in Bennu, which has none of the asterisks Murchison had, yes, the specific chemical and mineralogical composition of Bennu and Murchison vary, that's fair, and I'm not going to go over all of the specific chemistry of Bennu. Though, if you're interested, the Nature paper focuses on the minerals in the brine in the Bennu samples. The Nature Astronomy paper gets more into the organic chemistry and even makes some comparisons between Bennu and Murchison and Ryugu, our other two major asteroid samples. Okay, so Bennu provides rock-solid evidence that asteroids may contain abiotic, that is, not produced by living things, amino acids and nucleobases and so on. Why do we care? Well, one reason is that this locks in support for the hypothesis that meteorites could have brought these chemicals to early Earth and seeded it with these building blocks. That's not to say Earth couldn't have done it too. In fact, the Miller-Urey experiment we looked at earlier was originally designed to show how amino acids could have been synthesized in conditions on early Earth. Bennu is a proof of concept that shows not that asteroids can seed the Earth with life hypothesis is definitely right, but that it's definitely possible. Because if Murchison showed that an amino acid-laden meteorite could land on Earth, Bennu is the sample that proves they had the amino acids at the time. The other fun possibility is that asteroids have seeded other celestial bodies around here with these organic compounds. Asteroids do get around in this solar system. I mean, look at any rocky planet and all its impact craters to see that. And the chemistry of moons of gas giants, moons like Titan and Enceladus, are already pretty intriguing, already seemingly capable of generating small organic compounds or even more complex chemistry. Throw in all the compounds on asteroids and the solar system is becoming a real interesting place, chemically speaking. None of which I want to hasten to add means there's definitely life here or elsewhere. Bennu does not mean aliens. These are the simplest building blocks, and it's a long way to get from what we're finding to organism with a DNA polymerase enzyme that copies its DNA, but the DNA also codes for the DNA polymerase enzyme. It's a huge jump in complexity, even for the simplest forms of life. But what makes Bennu so cool is that it's another piece of the puzzle. The origins of life on Earth are always going to be a best guess because we can't directly, empirically observe our planet billions of years in its own past. But even if we can't look at what a life-filled Earth was like before life, NASA just proved we can look into our solar system's past, and they painstakingly retrieved just the thing. A sample from rocks formed 4.5 billion years ago. So you know what, NASA? I'm glad you took your time opening that jar. The wait was worth it.